Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced, and we are continuing with our saga here of Olympiad 2024. This is Arjun Saga. We have already covered Divya's of 9.5, 11, Brilliance, and Gukesh of 9 out of 10. So definitely Arjun deserves a round of applause as well because he got 10 out of 11. That's absolutely spectacular. So definitely this is Arjun's time and he played spectacular chess. And now here in the round, India is facing Iceland. So Arjun Erigaisi is playing Aleksandar Indjic. Aleksandar Indjic is a very strong grandmaster. So Arjun definitely has to be careful in this position. And here Aleksander starts with knight to f3. He goes for the ready opening. We have d5 by Arjun, g3, knight to c6, and d4. So he chooses to go for the queen's pawn opening. This is the Shigarin variation. And here bishop to f5, bishop to g2, now knight to b4, and just going for this knight to a3. So he tries to go for this variation where definitely it will give a lot of advantage right from the opening. I mean, a developmental advantage. Here just e6 now. Not just c3, pushing the knight back. Knight goes to c6 and queen to b3, already targeting a lot of pieces. Queen is developed, knight is developed, knight is developed, and you can just castle in this position, get the bishop here somewhere along the line, and yeah, your position is absolutely fine. So Arjun is definitely gonna be careful, but it's definitely something that he prepared, so he must have something in his mind. And you could go for a very nice line with bishop captures on a3 in this position. After queen captures, you play bishop to e4, castles, knight g to e7, and here after queen to b3, you just play b6, not allowing that pawn to be captured. And here after rook to e1, you just castle, so position would be absolutely fine, and you have sufficient development in as compared to white. And most likely the position should with perfect play end in a draw, but that really is the case. But after queen to b3, we play rook to b8, now just defending everything. Not even one of the pieces is developed toward the king side where you're supposed to castle, so that's crazy. So maybe, just maybe, Arjun is not preparing to castle towards the king side. So let's see what he has in mind. Here just knight to h4 by Indjic, and here in this position you could go for bishop to g4. This is a very different line because here after e4, now just striking in the center, because you understand that the king is still in the center and white can get the king to safety very easily. But here after d captures, we have bishop captures, bishop to e7, and knight to c4. And after this bishop to h3, not allowing white's king to castle, you play this knight to g2, blocking, knight to f6, bishop to f3, because that bishop was under attack and you have to defend the knight. So obviously here bishop to g4, now bishop captures, knight captures, and just a4, and you'll most likely castle here and your position would be absolutely fine. But after knight to h4, we have bishop to e4, immediately asking for a trade. And after f3, bishop goes all the way back, knight captures on g6, h captures, e4, now immediately striking in the center, and just knight to f6. So did Arjun achieve everything that he wanted to from the rest of the game? You could still go for this line, but I don't think Arjun is choosing to go for that, because here you have to understand you have to play a passive move and you have to play the passive line. And I don't think Arjun is ready to play passive, because he's the master of chaos. He brings chaos into these games. And in this position here, bishop to g5 by Indjic, and just bishop to e7, just blocking that pin. And here just bishop captures or space by Indjic. But you could just castle here in this position. You don't have to trade pieces, because here after castles you play queen back to d1, b5 most likely, and after this knight to b1, you play d captures, f captures, e5, and here in this position you could just immediately go for that, or you could just prolong it with bishop to e3. And after queen to d7, now you go for d5, knight will have to go to g4. There's a very crazy line because you're just targeting that and you cannot capture it in time. So here after move like bishop to h3, pinning that, now you go for knight captures on e3 nonetheless, because here after bishop captures, knight captures, rook captures, knight to a5, and most likely a few more moves later you'll see that this game would turn out to be a draw. But you have a very nice knight. Yes, white has the space advantage and a lot of these pieces here, and bishop is already controlling a lot of squares here, but most likely the game would still end in a draw. But here after this bishop to e7, bishop captures on f6 was played. Now just going for this g captures, e captures, and here just e captures, knight to c2 was played, but just knight to a5, queen to b5 check, and just going for c6, immediately also defending the knight as well. And here just going for queen back to e2, and knight to c4, now b3, knight to d6, and just castles in this position. King to f8, a very nice move by Arjun, saying that I'm not going to castle, I'm just going to get the king to g7. You don't have any attack, you did not push all the way towards the queen side, you did not push all the way towards the king side, and now my king is very safe. You can just develop the pieces, but you still don't have anything in this position. That's what Arjun is saying. And what does Indjic have is in reply for that? He goes for knight to e1, saying that I'm just going to get my knight two very nice squares where you won't be able to kick it away. It is queen to a5, but just rook to c1, knight to f5, and just b4. Now queen is under attack, queen needs to move, queen goes to c7 and f4. But for the time being, f4 doesn't do that very much, because even if you open the bishop up, you don't have any way where it could be targeting something, but still a decent move nonetheless. Here just a5 was played by Arjun, and in this position you could go for a move like rook to e8. It's absolutely fine, threatening some very nice discoveries in this position. And once the queen goes to f2, you play a5, same line, but here just a3, and after king to g7, now you play knight to d3, just getting the knight to decent squares, knight to d6, and here just knight to c5, knight to c4 now, and after a4, bishop captures, p captures, and now you can see that my knight is way much stronger than your bishop, although somewhere along the line you're going to bring the bishop here and maybe just trade that knight, because that knight in the center of the board is just a bit too strong and you don't want such knights to exist on your board. So that's why here. But after f4 we have a5 immediately by Arjun, a3 now, and just going for this rook to e8, queen to d2, knight to d6, and here just knight to c2. So definitely just both players trying to remaneuver the knights to perfect squares. And although you could immediately go for that knight to c4, seems like a decent move. You're attacking the queen that's coming with a tempo. Why would it not be a decent move? But queen to f2, and if you go for king to g7 now, f5, and f5, it's you just give some momentum to your opponent, then somewhere along the line that's going to help them, because if they're not able to see clearly what moves to play and how to proceed further in a game, and you give them and hand that in a platter, so definitely that's going to be coming back to bite you in the position. So here after g5 now just comes rook c to e1, queen to d7, and finally just doubling up. Now you can have to play a move like rook to e8, and whenever you double up I just move the rook away from there. And even if you go for a move like queen to f3, just a captures, and here after rook to a2, black will be better, but somewhere along the line you are giving a bit too much to white, and I don't think that's possible. I don't think that you should do that, because here after knight to c2, f5 was played, immediately stopping any advancement by white anywhere along the future, and that's definitely a good move. And here we have rook f2 e1, king to g7, and rook to e2. So Indjic has to be careful, because once that knight jumps, you're most likely not going to be playing knight to e4, because bishop can capture and your knight would not be of that very strong piece once it's gone off the board. So here just knight to c4 would be a very nice move in this position. Rook to 8, rook e to e1. I mean, that is a weird move, because why would you just go there and immediately decide not to just double up here? But bishop to f6, rook to e2, and just a captures. So playing a waiting move, maybe he was thinking that Arjun will ask for a draw somewhere along the line, but just a captures, rook to a2 now, and you can see that there is a lot of pressure. Knight is definitely jumping in, rook is already in your face. I mean, what can you do in this position? Here Arjun goes, here just rook e to e1 was played, again going for a waiting move, but this waiting move game is not going to help Indjic any longer. Here rook h to e8, he has doubled up on the a file while he was just playing and repeating moves, thinking that there is nothing in the position, but there is, because here rook to a1 was played, asking for a rook to 8, but just queen to b6. And now what do? Rook e to b1 was tried, shifting the momentum entirely towards the queen side, but the thing is that in queen side, Arjun has already developed very decently. Rook 8 to a4, and now queen to c1, but now just comes queen to a7, putting insane pressure towards the a5. Rook captures was played, rook to b2, but now just comes this knight to b5, and how are you defending that pawn? It's very, very difficult to defend that pawn. Here rook to b3 was tried, but the thing is that rook to b3 does not help that pawn at all. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try and find out the best move in this position, which completely crumbles in this position. Have at it. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this move, and the move is knight captures on c3 nonetheless, because hey, you cannot capture if you go for rook captures, bishop captures on d4, and I'm hitting the rook. That's exactly what was played, but just comes knight captures now, rook to a1, and your queen is trapped. And it was on this move, on just move 40, that Aleksandar Indjic resigned the game, and Arjun got this spectacular victory in just 40 moves, because there is nothing you can do. You cannot even move the queen, and even if you think that after the queen is captured, rook captures, I might be able to have something, you forgot about this pin and this knight helpless on just d4 square, and queen captures will pick that knight up right after I capture your queen. You cannot even defend the knight, you cannot move the knight. How are you going to survive in this position? And that's exactly what Aleksandar Indjic realized after that knight captures was played, and he resigned the game in just 40 moves. Spectacular play by Arjun. Already he has won 3 games in a row, 1 draw. So out of all the 4 games, he is 3.5 out of 4. That's a spectacular result in Olympiad, and let's see what he offers in further rounds. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with games like these, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be able to see you guys very, very soon. Thank you very, very much for watching.